John.
Thanks for that update, Tom. Okay, let's move
You're
on
welcome.
to GCAP committee. That's Tom and myself.
Right.
And
Robert, I have actually prepared a little 8-slide presentation to bring the community up to date, since most of our audience tends to be looking at this after the meeting. I thought it might be helpful. There have been so many changes around. We want to update people on the Caltrans survey results and also kind of what the options are at this point, and then go into the discussion on the resolution. And then we'll hear public comments for up to 3 minutes each. And then we'll have the council discussion, and we can consider the vote on the resolution. Does that sound agreeable to everybody?
that sounds just fine with me. Everybody else okay?
Okay, Sean.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Tom.
Okay. I'm going to share a screen then. Okay, as you know, there was a Caltrans survey in January in connection with the town meeting. The results of that survey were reported earlier, well, within the last month, and they found 81% of the community supports the project as a whole. They want Streetscape to go ahead. That's 4 out of 5 people. In particular, they found our residents were, quote, very supportive, unquote, and those are their words, not mine, of sidewalks, landscaping, bike lanes, and a 2-way center-left turn lane between Center and Church. There was no majority reached on parking on any portion of the highway. You'll remember in the survey, it asked about 4 different sections, and none of them drew a majority support. The only current alternative presented in the survey was Alt 4, aside from the original town plan concept, which I'll mention in a minute. And that drew 61% of support, which is strong. The 2-way center left turn lane from Church to Ocean was a split decision, 44 and 41 against. I should say 40 people were for it and 41 were against. So there's no decision there. That part of the project in Alt 4, if you have the 2-way center left turn lane there, you can't have parking on one side of the street, which is part of Alt 4. So what you would get then is Alt 2. It's basically, that's the difference between Alt 2 and Alt 4. Alt 4 has interim parking up there, and Alt 2 has the 2-way center left turn lane.
All the way to Ocean.
The original town plan concept, which was also mentioned as an option in the town meeting, was rejected by a substantial margin, but the survey failed to mention that the town plan has a width exception in it, and that's a critical factor. It wasn't explained well that you could, that the town plan allows for variations in the width. I think most people thought the 80-foot concept was too wide, and that actually is something that the community and MCOG have set aside years ago. It would still require formal approval of the Caltrans district director and the county planning director, but that's when Robert and I talk about being compliant with the town plan, we're assuming they would sign off on that, and that's why I think this was rejected. I can tell you personally, I voted against that because I know the 80-foot limit doesn't really apply anymore. Now, this survey was very consistent with most past results, the predominance of all the results we've seen over the last 20 years. The GMAC survey conducted in September of 1989 showed 89% of residents in favor of the project if parking for the surf market was resolved, versus 81% in the Caltrans survey. Our 2018, 89, and that was in the GMAC survey. It was an informational survey that Don and I conducted.
In what year?
In 2019.
19.
I believe it was just before the town hall meeting in September.
Right, okay.
In 2018, there was a town hall that was very supportive of sidewalks, landscaping, bike lanes, the 2-way center left turn lane throughout the town, and all off-highway parking. In 2019, we also saw the SURF petition, which called for a new proposal after Steve and others raised concern about the lack of parking for the SURF, and Steve said the SURF might have to close. And that issue is now somewhat resolved thanks to Mr. Bauer's comments in our last meeting that he is eager to go ahead with the SURF Center project. So that takes that off the table. And another thing that happened there was Caltrans came up with a determination that the center left turn lane was needed on the south end of town due to congestion and funding issues, among other issues. The Save Gualala petition, which now has something north of 1,570 signatures, also supported 3 lanes, one of which could be used for parking or for a turn, sidewalks, bike lanes, landscaping, and parking for the SURF to be some solution to this parking for the SURF, either interim parking on the highway or off-highway parking. The GCAP committee, I'm speaking for Robert and myself here, views these standards as town plan compliant. And MCOG and other local leaders agreed to that 60-foot limit as allowed by the town plan. So, makes sense. I want to share this. This is an artist's conception of what the north end of town would look like with Alt 4. And there's a photo of the north end today, and you can see a car parked on the right side of the highway. And in the painting, you can see a car parked there as well. The difference between the two is that the bike lanes and sidewalks and landscaping are added in the painting and aren't in the first one. So this is a rough conception. It's just an idea of what it would look like if we went that way. Why are we doing this project? We know that there are people in the community who would prefer Gualala just stay the way it is. And we've addressed that a couple of times. We do hear those people. They were a minority at the town meeting, but I respect that point of view, and we all love Gualala. There are significant safety issues. And here's one. This happens to be a car parked on the highway, a large truck parked on the highway. That makes it almost impossible to see oncoming traffic. And on the lower photo, I wanted to run this because it's looking south from about the view that Javier Chavez had when he was trying to take a left turn and was rear-ended. And today's ICO has a touching letter from Javier thanking the community for its support. And I just want to read the first paragraph to you because it kind of choked me up. As many of you know, I was rear-ended in a car accident on February 4th. I've never been so close to losing my life. My old truck did not have headrests, so the back of my head went through the rear window. I have a severe brain injury, but thank God I made it. You know, if we had a left turn lane at the top of town, this this might not have happened. We can't say it wouldn't, but that's the kind of thing we're worried about. And that's not the first injury accident we've had at that intersection. We do have a lot of off-highway parking in town and the potential for a lot more. And these are the areas that outline. There's over 600 existing spaces. And if the SURF goes through its redevelopment project, we'd add another 90, maybe a little bit south of that. I'm not sure how many really, but you can see that there's a lot of parking now and could be a lot more. So the options facing the community at this point are Alt 1 and Alt 2, which we heard about in June of 2019, I believe. And they're basically the same alternatives, except for a slight shift in alignment. And GMAC previously supported Alt 2 as it was more favorable to the SURF Center. And Caltrans later came up with Alt 4, which is the same as Alt 1 and Alt 2, except it allows for interim parking on the northeast quadrant with a proviso that Caltrans may determine in the future that we need a left turn lane there, or they may determine now. This new injury accident probably adds to that case. In any case, the parking on the northeast quadrant may or may not be moot now. I don't know. And people will ask, what about all three? MCOG, Caltrans, and the community raised concerns over the retaining walls on that. It was non-compliant with the Gualala Town Plan. It would require a GDP amendment, costing years of time and much more money. The town of Mendocino took 10 years in its amendment. And, you know, we have safety issues that probably need to be resolved. The original GDP, the width was substantially cut to 60 feet under the exemption allowed by that plan. The change only requires Caltrans and the Planning and Building Services to sign off for approval. And there's simply no room for 80 feet, as you saw in one of those photos I showed earlier. I could go back to that if anybody has questions. Now, we've taken a lot of positions on this. I want to mention them in passing. We endorsed alternative 2 originally because it was more favorable to the surf market. The surf owners still wanted a better proposal and launched their petition, and we came back and endorsed alternative 2, but with interim parking for the surf market. That still didn't satisfy things, and it led to the town meeting. And in deference to the surf and the community comments at that meeting, we voted to endorse all 3, which allowed for parking on both sides of the street. However, that ran into engineering issues and brought large community protest. And so we listened to the community again and endorsed Alt 4 when Caltrans offered that as an alternative to all 3, which allowed for some interim parking. It wasn't perfect, and we allowed for either 4A or 4B, as I recall, preferring the parking on the east side, but allowing parking on either side. Now, last month, Mr. Bauer was with us, and we heard the news that the Surf Center sounds like it's ready to complete its redevelopment project. It'll take a couple of years, and as John said, he has some hoops to jump through. I think that would be a very popular and positive development for Gualala, and it would certainly solve the parking problem that has plagued this project for quite a while. Tonight, we'll consider a resolution to ask MCOG to move forward on alternatives 1, 2, or 4, provided that they will not require a town plan amendment. The GCAP committee, we believe all 1, 2, and 4 all comply with the Gualala Town Plan without an amendment. However, if Alt 4 does not, the GCAP committee would support Alt 1 or Alt 2 instead of seeking an amendment for parking on the northeast side that really isn't needed. A number of people have asked me, why would there be parking on the northeast side? Nobody ever parks there. I explained it as best I could, and there are some cases for that. But the point is taken. There is, as I showed in that earlier slide, a lot of off-highway parking. So the draft resolution is quite long. It's been published on our website. It was hanging at the post office and has been posted publicly. It was discussed in a large front page article in the ICO today, and I want to thank the ICO for covering this for the community's awareness. But one of the key therefores are on the resolution would be to adopt without further delay either Caltrans alternatives 1 or 2 for the Gualala Downtown Streetscape, given they already comply with the GDP, or alternative 4 if it can be completed without a costly and time-consuming amendment to the GDP. So that concludes my presentation. And I think, you know, before we get into discussing the resolution, we should take a minute to hear from anybody in the public who wants to comment, and you would be offered 3 minutes to comment.
Who do we have in the audience still?
Kim is here from the surf market. Kim, do you have anything to say on that? Or John, you're here. Or Randy.
Surf, Randy, Melissa, or council members, right? We want audience members.
Well, we'd want to hear from the public first.
Okay.
Okay. I hear no comments. So if it pleases the council, I'll put the resolution on the shared screen. And I don't think it'll be necessary to read it unless somebody wants to read it. I'll be happy to do that. This is a draft. I have one minor change I want to propose in it. First, let me ask, do people want me to read this? Or has everybody had a chance to review it?
I don't think it's necessary. If somebody wanted to have a further explanation on any specific whereas or the other 4 points at the end, I mean, we went it over pretty thoroughly, and we're presenting it, or you're presenting it primarily. So specifics, I think we could talk about.
Okay, I move that we waive reading of the draft resolution. Do I hear a second?
Second, Don, Melissa, myself. Anybody?
Vote.
I'll second that.
Okay. Waiving the reading of the resolution. Can I take a vote? Melissa?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Tom? Robert?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Okay, we have it on the website
Okay.
for reference. So if anybody needs to reread it or whatever. Okay.
Now there's one area, I will share it on the screen so that people can look at it. There is one area I would like to amend from the draft. And I'll blow this up a bit so you can see it more clearly. I just want to add in the resolved portion to direct MCOG staff to work urgently with both elected and career state officials and federal sources. I want to insert those 3 words to secure funding for landscaping, sidewalks, and bike path portions of the project, including additional funding from CalSTAY and Caltrans per the governor's order N1919. The reason I wanted to add federal sources is because of both the COVID Recovery, Economic Recovery Act and the proposed infrastructure legislation that the president's talking about now might become additional sources for this. This is just the kind of project that the president's talking about. It's long delayed infrastructure repair, and I believe that we should ask MCOG to include that in their view instead of just waiting for Caltrans or CalSTAY to act on that.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine. We're fine with that edit. Tom?
Are there any other changes that anybody would like to talk, or does anybody have any questions about this?
I have just one minor point. Everywhere in this document, you spell out the names of entities that later are referred to with acronyms, except for SECA. So some people might not know what that is. I think you should spell it out.
Good point, Don. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Close parentheses. All right. Okay.
What was it he wanted to spell out? I didn't catch it. I'm sorry.
CEQA, for the California Environmental Quality Act.
What about under the resolved section, CalSTA?
That's already spelled out
Earlier. Okay.
in the last whereas, the California State Transportation Agency. And
okay.
This is kind of an obscure point. Let me mention this. Governor Newsom, when he rejected the Complete Street Act in a veto, about the same time he issued Executive Order N1919, which directed CalSTAY, California State Transportation Agency, to, quote, manage congestion through innovative strategies that encourage alternatives to driving. Our project would do that, both through sidewalks and bike paths. And that's why I believe that we should be eligible for some funds through CalSTAY, and which is the state agency that would administer that. We are also waiting to hear, we heard this year that we did not get the grant from the Alternative Transportation Program from Caltrans, which is the main faucet of funding for this. I hope that faucet can be opened wider with additional funding coming in from the federal government, or that the state may do that. I have personally written to Governor Newsom on behalf of our committee to ask him to include funding for Gualala and direct the state agencies to fund this project. And I don't want to be secretive about that I did write to the governor on that point. This is clearly an example of a community that favors this, that needs this for safety reasons. Melissa made this point well on the paper today, identifying herself as one of the seniors in town who would benefit from sidewalks so that she can walk through town. Is that too much to ask, that our seniors be able to walk safely through town? It's just unconscionable to me that we have this broken pavement and tell our kids and our seniors to do that, and our visitors. What kind of impression does that make to the people who support so many jobs in this town? Okay, any other comments or changes?
Not for me. Anybody
Then
else?
I think we're ready for a motion. If anybody would like to move approval of this.
I'll move approval of it again as amended.
Thank you, Melissa.
I'll second that.
Second.
Okay, Don, second. Okay, let's take a vote.
Okay, great.
Melissa?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Robert? I'm an aye. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Council. I will go ahead and write the letter on this. We'll be sending this to MCOG, which is in the process of considering options to give them our advisory position on this. And we'll also be including county planning, county supervisors, the California Coastal Commission. Maybe I'll throw in CalStay, since they're mentioned in here as well. All the agencies that are mentioned should be aware of this as well. CEQA is actually a process in the state that's administered in this case by MCOG and Caltrans. And you know, we're trying to get clarification too on CEQA review process, because we started a CEQA review process in June of 2019. It was never formally concluded. It led from alternative 1 and 2 to alternative 3 and 4. And I think we're ready to close that now. I think that we're still in that CEQA review. So this asks that we waive the need for any further CEQA review instead of launching another review that would, as I put it, retrace well-trod ground and result in additional delay.
Sounds good.
We have people's lives at stake, and we value them. So we want to, you know, we're advising here. It's really an MCOG project. MCOG must decide this.
We're just trying to provide some impetus behind it again here and keep this
That's right.
moving. It shouldn't.
Go ahead, Robert.
It shouldn't die out of our consciousness. Before it's too late, we really need to go forward with this as soon as we can. We heard from our law enforcement again. They're predicting all sorts of things with tourism being even more so because people are wanting to get out. I know we can't possibly accomplish this everything takes time, and this has already taken quite some time. We've been able to accomplish so much all over the years. Why can't we get this done? So,
and you know, I want to say while I'm like most of the community, a little tired of talking about this and would like to see some action, that I'd also like to say I'm very grateful for everybody's viewpoint on this. We do listen to everybody. We have heard everybody. We've tried to be inclusive in this process. And I am very gratified that our community has now come together. And I want to thank the agencies involved for their participation in basically confirming these results one more time. But I really think that after all the meetings we've had, discussions, town halls, petition drives, angry letters to the editor, all that stuff over 20 years, gosh, it's time to move forward. Enough talk, more action. So that's what this is about.
Maybe we should send a copy of the resolution to Governor Newsom too.
Good idea. I'll put the Gov on the list. The
Okay.
Gov is facing a tough political issue right now. Maybe this will catch his attention.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you very
Well,
much. We can move on.
Thanks, Tom, for that presentation. Okay.
You're welcome.